Do you feel like you're trapped in a psychological game where you don't even know the rules? The boundaries you worked so hard to establish suddenly become sharp weapons, turning back to stab you. That's when you're dealing with a narcissist. They are master manipulators, adept at transforming your boundaries into tools of control and destruction. But don't worry. This video will expose 5 insidious tactics narcissists often use to weaponize your boundaries. Armed with this knowledge, you'll gain the power to protect yourself and escape their cunning traps. Join me as we dive into this mysterious psychological world and equip ourselves with essential skills to emerge victorious in every game. 1. The narcissist tests and gradually pushes boundaries. Narcissists are like emotional chameleons. First, they may appear to respect and enthusiastically support your boundaries. They skillfully disguise their intentions with false agreement, lulling you into a sense of safety and trust. But don't be deceived. This is merely a calculated act, a sweet trap laid to gradually invade and dismantle the limits you've worked so hard to set. Like termites silently gnawing away, they begin testing your boundaries with increasingly invasive actions. If you don't respond firmly, they escalate, conditioning you to accept their transgressions as normal. For example, the first time you set a boundary, such as saying you don't want to share your phone password, they might act understanding and supportive. "I completely respect that. It's your privacy." They might even praise you for being firm. But don't be fooled. This initial respect is just a facade. Gradually, they'll start violating your boundaries. They might accidentally pick up your phone or sneak a glance while you're using it. If you don't react strongly, they'll push further, demanding to see your messages or sulking when you refuse. They might say things like, "I just want to look at pictures. Why are you hiding things?" Or, "If you have nothing to hide, why are you scared of me looking?" Their goal is to make you uncomfortable defending your boundaries, so you eventually give up to avoid conflict. Often, these seemingly harmless violations are overlooked until you realize your boundaries have completely blurred. To counter this cunning tactic, you need to recognize the early ripples and firmly push back against them. Every compromise, no matter how small, is a step backward in protecting yourself. Remember, consistency and decisiveness are your strongest defenses. These actions send a clear message to the narcissist. You cannot invade my space. 2. The narcissist plays the victim and induces guilt. Your empathy and compassion, qualities that may have drawn the narcissist to you in the first place, become weapons they exploit. Narcissists are masterful actors, using their victimhood to elicit sympathy and guilt from you. They'll portray themselves as the most pitiable victims, saying things like, "When you do this, it makes me feel like you don't trust me. Did you hide anything from me? If we're so close, how could you treat me this way?" This emotional manipulation preys on your empathy. Gradually, you'll prioritize their needs above your own, sacrificing your boundaries to keep the peace or avoid conflict. But each concession hands them more control over your life. You're teaching them that they can manipulate you with guilt, eroding your self-worth, and conditioning you to accept self-sacrifice as a norm. Over time, you lose yourself in the toxic relationship, becoming a puppet to their manipulation. While compassion is a noble quality, don't let it trap you in a cycle of sacrifice. You're not obligated to roll out the red carpet for someone who exploits your kindness. Be vigilant and courageous in setting clear boundaries to protect your heart. Don't let sweet words cloud your judgment and lead you into the toxic maze of their manipulation. 3. The narcissist accuses you of being controlling when you set boundaries. When you set boundaries, narcissists often retaliate by accusing you of being controlling. Their aim is to provoke conflict and strip away your autonomy, independence, and sense of self, forcing you to rely on them. They may accuse you of being heartless, disrespecting the relationship, or being overly controlling. However, instead of engaging in arguments, choose not to react and remain indifferent. When a narcissist sees that you no longer care about their accusations, lies, or threats, they lose their grip over you. Instead of stating your boundaries outright, live by them. Consistent and firm actions speak louder than words. Narcissists will eventually realize they cannot manipulate you and will move on to easier targets. For instance, if they interrupt you during a conversation, calmly but firmly state, I'll engage in this discussion when my input is respected. If they persist, leave the room. If they pressure you to do something you don't want, simply respond, I'll spend my time on what matters to me, and walk away. This approach shows that you control your reactions and uphold your boundaries without confrontation or explanation. Actions are harder for narcissists to twist or manipulate compared to words. Simple yet consistent actions, like leaving the room or declining to engage in a disrespectful conversation, reinforce your boundaries. Silence can be an effective response, not as a manipulative tool, like narcissists often use, but as a powerful declaration of self-control and determination to protect your boundaries. Silence allows you to avoid futile confrontations and lengthy explanations. Instead of repeating things that go unacknowledged, adopt a new strategy. Say nothing and walk away. This silent, decisive action communicates that you won't invest in a toxic relationship where you're hurt and blamed. It's a choice to stop being a target for insult, slander, or degradation. By staying firm and consistent, you regain control over your life and demonstrate that their tactics no longer affect you. Silence can be your strongest armor in maintaining your independence and self-respect. 4. They weaponize your boundaries in arguments. Narcissists often employ a dangerously manipulative tactic, weaponizing your boundaries. Not only do they remember every boundary you've set, but they also twist them into tools for attacking you during conflicts. The boundaries you establish to protect yourself are distorted under their influence to make you appear selfish, burdensome, or intentionally difficult. For instance, if you decline an invitation to a party because you need rest, they might criticize you. You always just want to be alone and don't care about my friends at all. Or, if you request personal space to work, they might retort, you're always shutting yourself off. I feel like a stranger to you. Even if you express discomfort with an inappropriate joke, they'll push back with, you're too sensitive. It was just a joke. These statements are designed to make you feel guilty and doubt yourself. They sow the idea that your boundaries are unreasonable, burdensome, or selfish. Over time, you might start questioning whether you should even set boundaries at all, exactly what the narcissist wants. Once you stop defending yourself, they gain greater control over you. This tactic is particularly insidious because it attacks your confidence and self-esteem. When your boundaries are twisted into evidence against you, you begin to feel as if you're doing something wrong. This self-doubt can spiral into a negative cycle, leading you to question not only the validity of your boundaries, but also your own self-worth. This vulnerability makes you more dependent on the narcissists, which is precisely their goal. Furthermore, this strategy creates a toxic environment where you're constantly on the defensive, feeling as though you must explain and justify every personal decision. Each time you stand up for yourself, the narcissist twists the narrative, making you feel like the one at fault, and certainly without any cooperation. It is time to learn boundaries, discouraging you from setting boundaries altogether for fear of ridicule or attack. Narcissists are exceptionally skilled at masking their intentions. They may pretend that their actions are for your benefit, or even claim to be helping you improve. In reality, their goal is to control you and weaken your defenses, ensuring they maintain dominance in the relationship. This is how they keep you emotionally and psychologically dependent on them. The key is to remember that your boundaries do not require anyone else's approval. Boundaries are your personal right, not an invitation for debate or judgment. Setting and maintaining boundaries is not selfish, it's an act of self-love and protection. If someone tries to make you feel guilty for establishing boundaries, it's a clear sign that they do not respect you. You don't need to argue or explain your boundaries. Narcissists may try to provoke you into defending yourself, giving them more opportunities to manipulate you. However, you can choose not to play their game. Indifference, consistency, and self-awareness are your best tools for countering such tactics. When the narcissist realizes they can no longer control you through criticism or manipulation, their power over you diminishes. This is how you reclaim your autonomy and peace of mind. Five, they mock and dismiss your boundaries. A common misconception is that you should directly confront a narcissist and demand they stop their inappropriate behavior. For example, saying, "Don't treat me like that," or "You've gone too far." In reality, direct confrontation often plays into their hands. For narcissists, any reaction from you signals that you're still part of their power game. Your response becomes a sign of life, proof that they still hold some control. This approach is not only ineffective, but also traps you, making you feel weaker. Instead, healthy boundaries should originate from within you and serve you. They're not instructions to control others, but rules to protect your peace and personal values. It's essential to understand that boundaries aren't just spoken words. They are reflected in your actions and the way you live according to your principles. True boundaries are not walls built with words, but an unshakable inner territory made of core values, firm beliefs, and unyielding self-respect. By living authentically and deciding what you will and won't tolerate, you naturally establish boundaries without saying a word. For narcissists, spoken boundaries often act as a challenge, sparking curiosity about how far they can push you. They test and provoke you, much like a mischievous child being told not to do something. Speaking your boundaries turns you into a target for their manipulation. Narcissists, like perpetual children, will never truly understand respect. They test you and poke at you, not out of hatred, but because they can't control their impulsive, childish desires. Not only will they distort your boundaries, but narcissists also excel at flipping the narrative, painting you as the villain in their story. They may label you as selfish, insensitive, overly sensitive, or even a joy killer. Tragically, many people fall into this psychological trap. You don't want to be seen as controlling, negative, or bad. Additionally, you likely have genuine feelings for this person. You believe no one deserves to endure such treatment, and the only reason you continue to tolerate it is love. But paradoxically, this very love blinds you. When someone you care about hurls harsh words, calling you worthless, a failure, or a burden, you tend to believe them. Your mind becomes trapped in self-doubt, convincing you that you're the problem and unworthy of love. Healthy boundaries must be upheld through consistent actions, not just words. For example, if the narcissist interrupts you, don't argue or explain, just calmly walk away. If they pressure you into doing something you're uncomfortable with, respond simply, "This doesn't work for me," and remove yourself from the situation. Silence is a powerful tool, not to manipulate, as narcissists do, but as a form of self-control and self-respect. It prevents futile arguments and sends a clear message: you will no longer invest in a toxic relationship. By maintaining this quiet confidence and staying true to your values, you demonstrate that their tactics no longer affect you. Over time, the narcissist will lose their ability to manipulate or control you. This is how you regain your sense of self and the peace you deserve. In conclusion, understanding how a narcissist weaponizes your boundaries is crucial for safeguarding your mental well-being and maintaining your autonomy. Whether it's inducing their manipulative tactics, whether it's inducing guilt, deflecting, playing the victim, distorting your words, or dismissing your needs, you can take proactive steps to protect yourself. Remember, setting boundaries isn't an act against others, it's a declaration of self-respect and self-care. A narcissist attempts to undermine your boundaries not because you're wrong, but because they fear losing control. The power lies within you. Stay steadfast, prioritize yourself, and refuse to engage in their manipulative games. When you choose self-awareness, build resilience, and are willing to walk away from toxic relationships, you give yourself the opportunity to live a peaceful and fulfilling life.